Are you concerned about the estrangement with your adult daughter and you're wondering if she's going to come back? Well, in this video, we're going to be discussing adult daughters that cut ties and how to prolong estrangement. Hi, I'm Marie Morin. I'm a therapist and a wellness coach. Let's get started. Estrangement is incredibly painful. It includes feelings of grief, such as shock, anger, sadness, anxiety. It could be really uncomfortable and very difficult to manage. If you're watching this video and you're cut off from your adult daughter, then you're among the 27% of the population in the United States that are cut off from one or more family members. What we know is there is a rise of estrangement worldwide having to do with adult children, and partly the idea of individualism and the way that adult children frame their relationship with their parents has a lot to do with it. What the research tells us in terms of daughters that cut ties from their parents, there are a couple of key things. One of them is betrayal, and betrayal is the idea that they had a reason to trust you and the trust was broken and therefore feel betrayed. It's a very complicated emotion. So there are times when an adult daughter has told their parent, their mom or their dad, that they were abused and they were not listened to. In fact, they may have very well been ignored or the person was not confronted. In this type of betrayal, it says to the adult child, my mom does not have my back. My dad did not have my back. They didn't care enough about me to do something about the abuse. When there's no confrontation and no validation, this is the atmosphere for the adult child to feel betrayed. We hear a lot about how adult children suffer from mental illness, and that's the contributor to estrangement. However, not every adult child has mental illness. Most people are normal and they struggle with a degree of depression and anxiety, but just because an adult child cuts ties does not mean that they are mentally ill. Another thing we know from research is that there are times where the adult daughter in her childhood or adolescence has experienced their mom not being well. For example, maybe she had a really tough go after a divorce, or there's been parental alienation and the mom falls to pieces, or the dad completely becomes undone because something terrible happened. Whatever the case, when these things occur, it's extremely trying for the adult daughter. If there has been toxic behaviors, now this toxic behaviors intermittently or at times, a mom or dad flipping out and yelling does not mean they have been abusive. People fall short and do things that they regret. However, when there has been a consistent abuse or attack on the adult child, this is extremely damaging to them and harmful, can be traumatizing, and can lead them to estrangement, particularly for moms and their daughters. There's an idea and expectation that mothers are going to be there for their daughters. They're going to have their back. They're going to have their well-being. If mom is not in that capacity all the time, the expectation has been completely demolished, and this could be very difficult on the adult daughter. What we know about daughters and fathers is that typically when there's been a divorce, and the dad aligns with another woman, leaving the mother and the child behind, or the adolescent, that the daughter will align with the mom and very likely cut off with the dad. Not in all cases, but in many cases. Well, how did you get here? So we talk about contributors and not causes. The reason why is because there's a lot of things that occur in relationships that can participate in an atmosphere where an adult child will cut ties. You're going to want to watch my video 11 reasons why adult children cut ties, because there's so much in there that contribute to estrangement, whether it's from a daughter to a father or a daughter to a mother. Typically, the divorce is really high as a contributor, as well as parental alienation. What we know from the research is that adult children don't just cut ties from one thing. In their eyes, there's been a perception, a long-standing state of angst with their parent, whether it's a mother or a father. And in order for them to feel better, meaning they want to get some relief from the stress of the relationship, that they cut ties. They don't just cut ties over one thing. What are the common contributors to estrangement? Parental alienation, divorce, mental illness, substance use, abuse, toxic behaviors, and betrayal. A desire to cut away from the family because of a need to become an individual. If you're watching this video, it's likely that you're in a state of grief. Now, remember, grief is about being shocked, angry, sad, feeling guilty, a lot of strong emotions where there could be waves. Grief is a normal response to the loss of the relationship status with your daughter. Interestingly, we know that parents and adult children, when they've cut ties, all parties struggle and suffer. It's not just the parents that hurt, but the adult child hurts as well. I hear from a lot of adult children. Many of them want to reconnect, and they're hoping that their parents in some way will change. It's pretty hard when the parents insist that they did nothing wrong. However, in spite of the fact that adult children want this relationship with their parents, if they feel that the relationship is immovable, like nothing they can do can make any difference, they will remain estranged. So you may be wondering or thinking a lot and saying, trying to make sense of this. Why did my adult child leave? Did this happen? Did that happen? And there's a lot of uncertainty going on. So how do you keep the door open? How do you prolong, and how do you shut the door firmly with your daughter? Well, the first thing is if you want to keep the door open, you're going to want to work on yourself. You're going to want to get stronger. You want to process your grief, do what's necessary, get support, do self-care, learn how to communicate with your adult daughter. Communication skills are not something that everyone knows how to do effectively. Learning how to validate, learning how to listen, learning how to really hear so your adult child feels heard. Your daughter wants to be able to say what she feels about what's going on without being met with a lot of defensiveness. One of the ways that you could prolong estrangement is dumping on your adult child, being really defensive, telling them how angry you are. You want to save that for a therapist. Another thing that you could do to either prolong or shut the door is to insist that your daughter now apologize to you for what she did. Another thing that you can do is to remain in a defensive posture, meaning I didn't do anything. This is all about you. This is all your fault. You want to respect her wishes. By not respecting her wishes, you prolong or close the door, guilting her. That will prolong or close the door. Expecting her to do things out of obligation will also just push your daughter away. What we know from research is that adult daughters would like to resume a relationship with their families when there is an absence of abuse and toxic behaviors, and when there is a demonstration that parents have changed. So learning how to do communication skills is a really good idea. There's people that have had really awkward communication with their adult daughters and have learned how to validate, how to communicate what they want to say without being hurtful or defensive, and then harming and prolonging estrangement. So what should you do when you're in this situation with an estranged adult children? Well, the first thing you ought to do is think about acceptance. Acceptance is a spectrum, right? So we can fully accept, or we could just work on accepting one day at a time. Work on telling yourself every day, I'm going to accept the loss of the relationship with my daughter just for today. This will help you. Another thing that's really important is no matter what the situation has been, even if there's been some really terrible things that have gone on between you, is to find empathy, not only for your adult child, but also compassion for yourself. This is hard. No parent is perfect. And as humans, we tend to make an awful lot of mistakes. Well, I hope this video has been a help to you. Please hit the like, subscribe, ring the bell, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you thought of this video. Don't forget to get my ebook, Feeling Heartbroken and Alone: How to Pick Up the Pieces When You're Estranged.